This story is very meaningful. Everyone should hear it. Listen to Brian tell the story. My name is Tom Hayes, a 28-year-old dreamer with a scruffy beard and a head full of ideas that never seemed to land me anywhere solid. I grew up in a small town just outside Chicago, the kind of place where everyone knows your business before you do. My dad was a mechanic, my mom a school teacher, and I was the kid who always had a sketchbook full of wild plans, apps, inventions, businesses. But life has a way of kicking dreamers in the teeth, and by the time I hit my late 20s, I was broke, jobless, and pouring every last dime into a startup idea I swore would change my life. I'd been out of work for months, living off savings and the occasional gig, betting it all on this one big dream. My girlfriend Vanessa, she was the one thing I thought I could count on, the one person I wanted to build a future with, until that night at the restaurant when everything went to hell. It was supposed to be the moment of my life. I'd planned it for weeks, reserved a table at La Dolce Vita, this upscale Italian place downtown where the lights are low and the wine's expensive. I'd invited our friends, told them to bring their phones to capture it all. Vanessa looked stunning that night, her long blonde hair catching the candlelight, her green eyes sparkling as she laughed with her best friend Claire across the table. I felt my palms sweat as I reached into my pocket, fingers brushing the empty velvet box I'd borrowed from a pawn shop. I couldn't afford a ring, not yet, but I had a speech, a promise, a vision. I thought that'd be enough. I was wrong. I dropped to one knee, heart hammering so loud I could barely hear the gasps from the crowd. "Vanessa," I said, my voice shaky but full of hope. "I can't afford a ring right now, but I promise, once my company gets off the ground, I'll buy you whatever ring you want." I flipped open the box, showing her the empty space like it was some kind of placeholder for our future. Her face froze, those green eyes narrowing as the room went dead silent. Then she exploded. "Are you being serious right now?" she snapped, her voice cutting through me like a blade. "Who proposes with an empty ring box? I'm not some lying fiancé, Tom. Oh my God, this is so embarrassing." She shoved her chair back, standing up so fast it nearly tipped over, her hands flying to her face as if she could hide from the dozen phones now pointed at us. I felt my stomach drop, heat rushing to my cheeks as whispers rippled through the restaurant. "Vanessa, wait!" I stammered, scrambling to my feet, but she was already storming toward the door, her heels clicking like gunshots on the hardwood floor. Here we go again, picking up right where I left off. I trudged through the damp streets after leaving the restaurant, my shoes squishing with every step, the cold March wind slicing through my thin jacket. Vanessa's words kept looping in my head. "You're a loser, Tom." And Jake's smirk burned behind my eyes like a taunt I couldn't shake. By the time I stumbled into Nora's apartment, I was a wreck, my hands trembling as I fumbled with the key she'd given me years ago for emergencies. She yanked the door open before I could knock, her paint-streaked sweatshirt and wild red hair a stark contrast to the polished chaos I'd just fled. "Jesus, Tom, you look like you've been hit by a truck," she said, hauling me inside. Her place smelled like coffee and turpentine, a cluttered sanctuary of half-finished canvases and thrift store furniture. I collapsed onto her sofa, the springs groaning under me, and let it all spill out. The botched proposal, Vanessa's fury, Jake's smug interference, Claire's revelation about the DMs. Nora listened, perched on the floor with her knees drawn up, her hazel eyes flickering between shock and sympathy. When I finished, she slid a beer across the coffee table, the can cold against my palm. "It's going to be okay," she said, her voice steady despite the mess I'd dumped on her. "I thought she was my person, you know," I muttered, staring at the label peeling off the can. "The one who'd stick with me through everything. But I was just kidding myself." "I'm so sorry," Nora said, leaning forward. "And her having guys lined up already? That's low, even for Vanessa. But honestly, Tom, I think you dodged a bullet." "Maybe," I said, my throat tight. "I don't know what's next. No job, no girl, no home. I've got a little savings left for the business, but now I'll probably have to burn it just to eat." Nora's eyes narrowed, a spark igniting in them. "No way. You're not giving up. You're a catch. Kind, smart, hardworking. That company of yours? It's going to be huge. Crash here as long as you need." "Nora, that's too much." "It's an investment," she cut in, grinning. "I expect a fat check when you're rich." I chuckled, a small crack in the weight pressing down on me. "Thanks, but I'm not sure I believe in myself anymore. Maybe Vanessa's right, maybe I'm just a dreamer with no shot." She grabbed her laptop, flipping it open with a fierce determination. "Okay, who saved my dad's shop with that ad campaign? You. Sales up 40%. Who built Mrs. Norris that website? You again. She's sipping margaritas in Florida because of you. You've got this, Tom. You just need a push." Her words hit me like a lifeline, tugging me out of the pit I'd fallen into. I spent that night on her sofa, the hum of the city outside lulling me into a restless sleep. Vanessa's rejection still stinging, but Nora's faith planting a seed of something new. The next morning, I woke to the smell of burnt toast and Nora cursing in the kitchen. "I'm not a chef," she said, tossing me a charred slice. "But you're eating it anyway." "Fair," I said, managing a smile as I chewed the bitter crust. "I need to figure out my next move." "Good," she said, plopping down with a mug of coffee. "Because I found something, a startup conference next month. Big investors, tech hotshots, you're going." "Those things are expensive," I said, rubbing my eyes. "I've got maybe $200 left." "I've got savings," she shrugged. "It's yours." "Nora, shut up and take it," she said, tossing me a flyer. "You're pitching that app of yours." So I did. The weeks leading up to it were a grind. Me hunched over my laptop in Nora's living room, her sprawled on the floor sketching while we brainstormed. My app, Grow Easy, was an AI tool to help small businesses nail ad targeting on TikTok and Instagram. Cheap, effective, a lifeline for the little guy. I'd been tinkering with it for months, convinced it could ride the wave of social media mania sweeping the country. Nora threw out ideas between her coffee shop shifts, her enthusiasm infectious even when I doubted myself. The conference was a sleek, gleaming affair in a downtown convention center, all glass and steel and buzzing ambition. I wore my only suit, a gray number Nora had ironed until it looked halfway decent, and clutched a USB with my pitch deck, my stomach churning as I navigated the crowd. Then I saw him, Jake, lounging by the bar with a martini, his tailored blazer screaming money, his eyes locked on mine, and that smirk spread across his face again. "Well, well," he called, sauntering over. "Didn't expect you here, Tom. Thought you'd be hawking that empty box on the street by now." "I'm pitching my app," I said, keeping my voice even. "Maybe you'll want in." He snorted. "Doubt it. Good luck. You'll need more than Nora's pep talks to pull this off." My turn came late in the day. The stage lights were blinding, my palms slick as I clicked through my slides. Grow Easy uses AI to optimize ad targeting for small businesses on TikTok and Instagram, I said, finding my footing. Low cost, high impact. I tested it with a local shop, revenue up 40% in 2 months. The crowd murmured, a few nods rippling through, and I felt a surge of hope. Then Jake's voice cut through. "Cute story, Tom," he shouted from the back. "But can you deliver? Last I checked, you couldn't even deliver a ring." Laughter bounced around the room, my face burning as I gripped the podium. "I don't need a ring to prove my worth," I shot back, meeting his gaze. "I've got results. I just need someone who believes in the idea." A woman in the front row stood, her sharp gray suit matching her steely demeanor. "Sophia Ramirez," she said, her voice commanding. "I run a venture fund." "I like your grit, Tom. $500K to get you started." The room buzzed, Jake's smirk faltering as I grinned, relief and disbelief crashing over me. "Thank you, Ms. Ramirez," I said, my heart pounding. But Jake wasn't done. Later, as I mingled with Sophia, he cornered me near the coffee station, his martini sloshing in his hand. "You think you've won?" he hissed. "I've got my own app in the works. Same space, better tech. I'll bury you before you even launch." "Bring it on," I said, my voice steady despite the knot in my gut. I'd faced worse than him tonight. The next 6 months were a whirlwind. With Sophia's cash, I built a small team. Me, a coder named Ravi who'd dropped out of MIT, and a marketing whiz named Lexi who lived on energy drinks and sarcasm. We worked out of a cramped office above a deli, the smell of pastrami seeping through the floorboards. Grow Easy launched to rave reviews, small businesses flocking to it like it was their secret weapon. Revenue climbed, and I moved into a loft downtown, Nora insisting on hanging her weird paintings on my walls. One afternoon, I was driving my new red Tesla, Nora's pick, when I heard a familiar voice. "Tom? Is that you?" Vanessa stood on the sidewalk, her tight dress hugging her curves, her eyes wide as she clocked the car. "This yours?" "Yeah," I said, leaning out. "Company's doing well?" "Wow," she purred, stepping closer. "I always knew you'd make it. I've been thinking about you. Maybe I was too hasty. We should talk. Dinner, maybe?" "What about those rich guys?" I asked, eyebrow raised. "They weren't what I thought," she said, her smile faltering. "I'm ready for something real, with you." The passenger door opened and Nora stepped out, a simple silver ring on her finger glinting in the sun. "Hey, Vanessa," she said, her tone light but sharp. "Fancy seeing you." Vanessa's jaw dropped. "You married Nora? She just swooped in when you got money." "No," I said, wrapping an arm around Nora. "She believed in me when I had nothing. This ring, she chose it. It's not about size, it's about love." "We've got a TikTok meeting," Nora added, smirking. "Good luck, Vanessa." We drove off, her stunned face fading in the rear view. But the story doesn't end there. Not quite. A week later, I got a call from Ravi, his voice tight. "Jake's app just launched," he said. "He's undercutting us, offering it free for the first month. Businesses are jumping ship." My stomach sank, but I forced a grin. "Let him try," I said. "We've got loyalty. He's got flash. We'll outlast him." Months later, Growazy was still climbing, our users sticking with us for the results we delivered. Jake's app tanked. Too buggy, too rushed, his investors pulling out as his empire crumbled. I heard through Claire he'd lost his fancy condo, his Audi repossessed, Vanessa long gone when the money dried up. Me? I'm still building, still dreaming, Nora by my side. We're not at the top yet. There's always another fight, another Jake waiting to knock me down. But I've learned something. Belief in yourself and the people who lift you up is worth more than any ring, any car, any win. So what do you think, folks? Would you bet on me or Jake? Drop your thoughts. I'm still here, still scrapping, and I'd love to hear your take.